Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, thank you all so much for being here. This is so wonderful. I was just soaking this in. This is so wonderful. Welcome to our 30th Ozark UFO conference. Huge milestone, huge. And this could not be done without you. So thank you so much for being here. Oh my gosh, this is... And on Easter weekend too, so thank you. Thank you for your loyalty, thank you. This means so much. Oh, thank you. We have a wonderful lineup for you and everything. And also, before we go on, this could not be done without our fantastic team that I will talk more about as we keep going. We have a huge, wonderful team that just grinds and keeps making this happen, and it's fantastic. But I really want to give a great kudos out to Race and his team with KGR Radio, who is our lifeline. Truly our lifeline, because they keep us plugged in to the pulse on the speakers. Okay, that's how we get these fantastic speakers, is his team. So a little bit of housekeeping first, and then I've got a little surprise for you. Okay? All right. Okay, first of all, your cell phones. Okay, off or vibrate. Okay, and after each talk, the speaker will be going to their table downstairs to sell their products and sign their books. Okay, so let them get out of here and go down there. Okay? In your packets, you have DVD order forms, and so they can be taken care of at the registration table. And then you have pre-registration forms for next year's conference also, and they can be taken care of at the registration table. And on Sunday at 1:30, there is a door prize drawings, and you must be here to win. And the grand prize is a full conference ticket and 2-night stay at the Inn of the Ozarks. And so that's always a wonderful thing. And I think I'm looking at last year's winner right there, yes. So would you like to stand up? Yes. Okay. Let's see. You also have evaluation forms in your packet, so please let us know your thoughts. We always want to make it a wonderful experience for you, and we're always trying to find new and better ways to do that for you. So first of all, what do you think of the little bit of Thank you. Yeah, Adnan and John Moore, our graphics guys, put that together. Their creativity is over the moon. Yeah, just to create this wonderful ambiance and beautiful experience for you. So kudos out to them. Okay, there's signs and banners everywhere. Please follow their messages. They're there for a reason. Okay, they're there for very specific reasons, so please follow them. Okay, when the speakers are here, if you have questions for the speakers, we have a mic that will be set up for them for this. Also, if you do not get your questions all answered, if there's not enough time, you don't feel like there's enough time to get your questions answered, or if you don't get with them, because they will be at their tables also, and you're just not able to get with them at the speaker's dinner, or for some reason you have a burning question, it just never got answered, we're going to have a speakers panel on Sunday. So, so if you didn't get it answered, that was on you, okay? It was because you just didn't get up there and ask it. So, because we're going to give you lots of opportunities to get your question out there. All right? And remember, we have the vendors downstairs. So please, please, please go downstairs and make sure you find them and go give them your business. They are wonderful. They have been with us year after year after year. They are one of our lifelines, okay? So another one of our lifelines. So please patronize. Patronize? No, that's not the word I wanted. What? What's the word? Is the word that doesn't sound like the right word? Go spend money down there. Okay, buy their stuff. Okay. All right. This video I'm going to show you is a huge thank you to David Marlar. Okay, as you know, he has this huge archive. Huge archive of material. And so we asked him, and bless his heart, in the middle of his busy, busy schedule, he got us some material, and so Adnan was able to put it together and to give you this.
Okay, before we get on with the program, introduce our final speaker. We have something that's turned up tonight that I know you'll all want to see. As I told someone a minute ago, this is one of those synchronicities that, you know, you're lucky if you see one of them in a lifetime. Steve Stockton, one of our very capable technicians over here, was down at Bubba's, eating his barbecue, minding his own business, and looks down at his last potato chip. Yeah. And you know why we're all here? If we could have that on the screen. Look at that. Look at that. I swear it has not been doctored. Now, if you think there's not cosmic significance in that, okay. Save that potato chip.
Flying potato chips are serious business.
What?
Flying potato chips are serious business.
We better get on with business. It's 1 o'clock. It's April the 8th. It's Eureka Springs. So I guess it's time for number 17. Hard to believe we've been doing this 17 years. Hard to believe we're going to do it more. But we are. I want to welcome you all back. I think the majority of you, that is appropriate, because I think about 90% of you have been here before in previous years. We appreciate the long support. We also appreciate the newbies who are here for the first time. Hope you'll enjoy what we have to offer. Hope you'll find it entertaining, informative, and maybe even amusing. I want to remind you that the vendors are downstairs. Please go down and patronize them. The coffee is also downstairs. There's a reason for that. That's to get you down to the vendors. And the coffee is free, so help yourselves. You won't see my bill for it, so, you know, drink as much as you want. That is why it's there. I hope that we're going to present something in the next 3 days that you will find worth your while. We have a total of 10 speakers. We're eliminating the speakers panel this year simply to provide more time for one more speaker. I always hate when I get a lineup of speakers and I don't have room for someone else that I'd like to have. So we're going to try this and see how you like it. And what we'll do is give each speaker about 10 minutes at the end of their presentation to take questions. There'll be a mic set up. You can come up and ask questions. And of course, I think this conference is open enough that you'll see speakers wandering the lobby at any time of the day or night. And if they're not there, they'll be at the Lone Star. So you can catch them sooner or later and ask them whatever questions you might have. Our next speaker and I have known each other for, I guess, 10 or 12 years now. I knew her before she had any books published, before she became a world traveler. I knew her in the days, I kid her now, I say, I remember you when a trip to Little Rock was a big deal, you know. Now she's traveling all over the world. Someone suggested that I introduce her by saying that while we may not have all of the big guns in ufology here, we do have Dolores Cannon. Now, you know me well enough to know I would never introduce anyone that way. But if she is a cannon, with the traveling she's done and the speeches she's given in all parts of the globe, she's the shot heard around the world, I'll say that. You've seen her books out here. She's done 3 on the UFO subject. The Legend of Star Crash, Keepers of the Garden, and the one from which she's taking her material today, the latest one, Legacy from the Stars. And she has a lot of interesting material from the people that she's worked with in hypnotic regression sessions. So I'll let her tell you about it. Dolores, wherever she is. Here she comes. And we've got to, because it's early in the morning, you know, we've got to have a little something special. So she's going to be seated while she gives her presentation.
I guess you already did the introduction. I was out there. Okay. No, I said, this is awful early in the morning to be doing this. And I didn't get anything to eat, and my stomach's going around, so I said, can I sit down? I don't think you care, do you? It's a little more comfortable anyway. Okay. That's my breakfast. Just a minute. Yeah.
Linda's back.
God bless Lou Parrish. You know that we've all said to you the past 4 or 5 years, if it was not for you, we would not be here the 15th year, the 16th, the 17th, the 18th, now the 19th. And Lou and I were talking on the phone, and he said, well, you know, 20 is a nice round number. Maybe we should cut it off after 20. And I said to Lou, well, if our conferences aren't going to leverage the government open with the truth on UFOs, maybe it is. Let's just close it down. But you know, there is something about this 19th conference. Me Now, Eureka Springs is more than a conference. It's become a kind of family gathering for those of us who seek the pressure of facts about what out there is interacting with Earth. And then there is our mutual dismay that our government has had a policy of denial since at least World War II, to keep facts about other intelligences in the cosmos from what once upon a time was supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So thank you, Lou Parrish, Lee Clinton, Gene Siegfried, and the whole Eureka Springs gang. May there be 2,300 more, and that each one we know more, and maybe even have a non-human standing here one day.
I want to introduce our MC, but I want to do a little thing first, and he's very nervous about it. And I have a confession to make. We did a radio show it's been several weeks ago now, because we were starting off before I started interviewing all of the, some of the speakers for the conference. And I wanted to interview Forrest because he knows everybody and he has the best stories, and he's been here as the MC, and I thought this would be a great way. He's been here forever as the MC. That's what I knew about him, okay? That's my confession to you. This is what I knew about him. And when I was preparing for the show, I'm trying to find more information. I couldn't find any more information. I looked on his Facebook page. There's nothing there. And I'm like, okay, so this is all I know about him. So the plan for that show was to talk about all the speakers that are coming up in this wonderful lineup that we have for you. But what I wanted to do first, which is what I always do on my show, is to I wanted to know his journey, how he got into all of this. And I thought, well, we do that real quick, and then we'll get into talking about the speakers. I am so glad that this radio show is audio and not video, because I was sitting there with my mouth open. My chin was dragging on the floor for most of the show. I'm sitting there going, I didn't know this stuff. I learned so much about him. I'm like, oh my goodness, we have to have another show. Oh my. And this is what's so wonderful, is the caliber of people that are here before you, teaching you constantly. And it was right here. He was right here all the time. I didn't know, and I'm so sorry. Anyway, you demanded him, and now I see why. A couple of years ago, you're like, we want Crawford. We want Forrest. We want Forrest, and I get it now. I get it. Totally. So thank you for demanding him. So anyway, now, thank you for being here, and thank you for continuing to be here. And yes, we are going to do another show, and we're going to be talking about a book. He's got so much information. And anyway, I'm not going to introduce you. I'm going to let Lou introduce you. Okay?
I think it's always good to start off with Forrest, because if he does a good job, which I fully expect, then you'll say, boy, that was great. I can't wait to see what's next. And if he doesn't do a good job, which is hard to believe, you can say, well, it's got to get better. So with that, I feel I've insulted him enough. I'll ask him to come forward and tell you about me and Mr. Gravity and Obituary. Please welcome Forrest Crawford.
17 years, oh my gosh. All right, let's start out with some commercial stuff first and get that out of the way. Who's seen the movie What the Bleep? You can hold your hand up, I can't see it all. All right, if you haven't seen the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? It is a must-see, and we're going to show it at the dinner break tomorrow afternoon. So plan ahead, order a pizza in, or bring some food back, and come and watch the movie. It's absolutely awesome, and yes, I'm advertising for it. Okay, the other thing is I brought a toy with me. At the end of this speech, it'll make more sense to you, that it's one of my immense collection of crap that I've collected over the years that I'm now trying to get rid of, okay? And I rather than just throw it up on eBay, I thought somebody here might appreciate it better. It's an antique gravity meter. It's a Gauss meter from the 1950s in mint condition. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up for silent auction, where you can just sign up, and the last guy that's got the most on there will get it.
Hi. I don't even know where to go after that. Thank you so much for that. For the video of Lou, too. I miss him. I miss your mom. Now I'm going to cry. That's not good. Well, I'm very honored to be back and be doing this job to honor Lou, to honor this conference, and just to be a part of it. One of the things that you're going to see this weekend is Lou touched on this over the years, but him and I would always have conversations before the conference, and it would be like, I wonder what the theme of the conference is going to be this year, because I can assure you that then and now, there's no thought that goes behind, let's have these 10 speakers because their talks will complement each other, and I know that Lou never thought about that. He's just like, oh, I like this guy, I'm going to invite him, but then the conference would always take on a life of its own, and out of it would come these profound synchronicities, if you will, where one speaker would talk about something that would, bolster the next, and there would be like a theme that would come out of it. And this year is going to be no different. By looking at the material that the speakers are going to cover, one of the things that you're going to see is how this phenomenon has affected the lives of people. That's going to be one of the underlying things. And so much of the time we focus on the nuts and bolts of investigating UFOs and strange phenomenon, but there's no science on this earth that cannot affect what it's trying to observe. This is one of the things that modern science is now learning, that even by observing an event, you're affecting that event. This phenomenon affects us, and it's one of the reasons why I love to be here, so much. And it gets in you, and you can't get it out of you. Okay, it compels you. And to understand how it affects us and what that means as individuals is as important as any other data that we might collect about this subject. So you're going to see that kind of run through everything. The other thing is you've heard me say this before, that the modern UFO research proper has been going on for about 70 years or so. It is a highly personal scientific endeavor, more personally interactive than most other sciences. There are certain figures in the history of ufology that are the giants. I speak of the rest of us stand on the shoulders of these giants. You've heard that phrase. Well, this weekend, we have several of those giants on this speaking list. And these are groundbreaking researchers that have changed this phenomenon and laid the groundwork for all the research that has come since then. So you guys are going to be treated to, several of those giants are on this speaking docket this weekend. There are a couple of other key cases that set the groundwork for UFO research. And while the researchers aren't going to be here, the subjects or relatives of those subjects are going to be here. So you're going to be as close to that part of the phenomenon as well. For the 30th conference, this is a tremendous list of speakers. So you guys are in for a treat. So, without further ado, our first speaker has straddled two worlds for most of his life. He was a career police officer, investigator, detective, plainclothes military police, worked on fatal accident team management, a patrol supervisor, detective sergeant, a training officer, a big career as a police officer and everything that kind of goes with that. At the same time, he has had an interest in the UFO phenomenon and has been examining it for many, many, many years, like 30 years. He joined MUFON in 1986 and is currently the Washington State Director for the Mutual UFO Network. And he has appeared on many, many radio shows and lectured, including the United States and in Paris, That's pretty cool. And he's appeared on lots of radio and TV shows. You're going to hear that every introduction, by the way, because all the people that are here are well known in this field. And he is author of a book, Tell My Story, June Crane, the Air Force and UFOs, as well as the Westport UFO Crash Retrieval Event. So join me in welcoming our first speaker, James Clarkson.
Thank you sincerely. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is James Clarkson. It's a sincere honor to be here. It's with a great deal of gratitude and humility that I'm here. I was supposed to be here last year, and due to unforeseen health challenges that I know many people have gone through, I almost wasn't here at all. So this has given me a new sense of purpose and direction, thinking about what am I going to do from here on out, and more importantly, how do I give back? And I'm hoping that this is going to be set up for me. There we go. Giving back means that you take everything that you have experienced, thank you, and you try to come up with ways that you can leave something behind, some kind of a legacy, something that other people will benefit from. So today what I decided I would give you is the best of 30 years of trying to understand the UFO phenomena. I'm going to switch back and forth between history on a broad scale and history on a personal level. I think it's working. And I've got to power this thing up. There we go. I'm a cat lover, I apologize.
I'm ready to be told, time for secrets to unfold. It's our time to come of age, time for truth to turn the page. Don't wanna be inside the dark, live within a question mark.
So this is my quest for UFO reality in the Pacific Northwest, can be expanded to a larger level. UFO reality is a term that I use, a broad concept. What exactly are we interacting with? We think of reality as something solid and definite that we all know and understand, but especially the people here after 30 years of studying this, for some of you it may be many more years than that, you know that reality is not exactly the way that it's been explained, and that out at the edges of it, there are experiences and phenomena that don't fit into conventional definitions. I was trying to think of the words urgency and significance and what they mean. Urgency because nobody knows how much time they've got. Urgency because we have never been through a time that seems more uncertain, where we desperately need some kind of a truth. That, by the way, is my contact information, and my wife Joanna and I at the McMinnville UFO Festival a few years back. I like to get into the spirit of things. That's my background very briefly. I am someone who's walked in two worlds. I've arrested people for murder. I've taken confessions from people about all manner of crimes. I was a child abuse detective for a couple of years. I have been a fatal accident team supervisor, but at the same time, all of my life, I've had a passionate interest in this subject, even though I have not personally had an experience. That's the question I always get asked. What have you seen? What have you experienced? And I always say, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. But I am compelled and overwhelmed by the depth and the sincerity of the witness testimony and the evidence that exists never ever apologize for your interest in this subject. This is probably the most significant subject anyone will ever address, and I still am absolutely convinced that when we get the truth about this phenomena out in the open, it will forever change how the human race relates to itself and what position and role we will have in the cosmos. When people say, when is disclosure? That question comes up all the time. I do not believe that we can depend upon our leaders to tell us the truth. It's not going to happen anytime soon, and I say that nonpartisan. We have to get the truth. We already have it. You want to see disclosure? Look around the room. Attend this conference. Meet the people that are here. Make friends. Network. This is a very important year. The word synchronicity. We have a 30-year conference here, a superb tradition of bringing some of the very best people in the UFO field together with some of the most dedicated followers and researchers and friends, all in one place. We also have a 70-year anniversary this year. On a larger scale, the modern era of unidentified flying objects is celebrating its 70th anniversary this year. So all of these numbers are stacking up together. And for me, it's 30 years that I've been seriously involved in the UFO field. Now, talk about getting hit over the head with synchronicity. That's a portrait of the artist as a young dog. 30 years ago, that was me. 30 years ago, in 1987, there was an extremely significant UFO case that hit the headlines. Kenji Toroshi, a JAL cargo airliner pilot flying into Alaska, observed a UFO that was enormous. That's his drawing. Look at his plane next to this craft. It was originally confirmed on radar by the FAA. The story exploded across the news headlines. What was the result? We misspoke. It wasn't really on the radar. But of course, if you've read, I believe, Leslie Kean's book, where one of the people in charge of the radar control room has now retired. I love talking to retired official people because they're a lot more free with telling you what really happened. You will find that, yes, indeed, it was on the radar. We're going to talk about some of my favorite radar cases not too farther along. I came to Washington State via Uncle Sam. I was in the Army military police. I was a plainclothes military policeman. I almost never wore a uniform. I worked 24-hour duty days as what was called a military police investigator. One night I was up chatting with the desk sergeant. I happened to look down. There was a very large piece of plexiglass. All these business cards underneath. And I saw that business card. This is in a military police station. I said, "What's that, Sarge?" He looks at me very matter-of-factly and says, "That's where we report UFOs." I went, "Oh." And we had about another 20, 30-minute discussion about very strange things that he knew about in Europe, to include UFOs sitting down at the end of a runway. But I remembered that phone number, and in 1987, after the Toroshi sighting happened, I thought, I am not going to sit on the sidelines anymore. I want to do something. I called that phone number. A retired Seattle firefighter named Robert Gribble answered the phone. I said, "I don't want to report a UFO. I want to know, how can I help?" And he said, "Have you ever heard of MUFON?" I said, "No." The Mutual UFO Network. I joined. I've been a member ever since. Now I'm the Washington State Director. But I can't do anything without the help of many great volunteers, and most of all, without the help of the public. It's the same thing as being a law enforcement officer. You can't do a good job as an officer if you don't get along well with the public. You have to be able to get people to talk to you. If they won't communicate, you don't get the good information. In any event, that phone call led me to an ongoing 30-year friendship with Peter Davenport, who is the international director of the National UFO Reporting Center, because when Robert Gribble got older, he passed the torch to Peter Davenport. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with his work. He is one of the most dedicated researchers that I've ever met, a man I genuinely respect. So what is UFO reality after 70 years? Classic examples of the types of UFOs that are reported. Now, this particular set of statistics says that 120,000 cases have actually been documented. Now, you have to ask yourself, though, what is the standard of documentation? 20,000 described as landings. 5 to 10% of the U.S. population claims that they have seen a UFO. I don't know how many of you have done this, but here's an experiment. Go into a group of people that you know, not people that you go to the conference with, but just other people, and bring up the subject of UFOs in conversation. And I would be willing to bet it will go like this. There will be jokes about little green men and people with tinfoil hats. And as soon as you get past that, I guarantee one or more people in the group will want to tell you about either a sighting that they've had, or someone they know and trust has had a sighting, or they have a relative who used to work in the Army or the military who saw something. There's way too much smoke for there not to be a whole lot of fire. In Washington State, in Peter Davenport's database for New Fork, we have 5,478 reports since 1974. In MUFON, we have 1,718, of which I can personally account for over 700 that I've investigated. It's probably close to 800 now. Now, are they all true UFOs? No, they're not. And I'll explain how that breaks down. That's a breakdown of my 700 reports. And we are not going to get lost in statistics here. I don't want to be accused of using statistics the way the drunk uses the lamppost, for support, not for illumination. But in any event, I will tell you that my statistics seem to match up with everybody else's. And here is a good benchmark rule of thumb. Out of every 10 reports that we receive, 3 of them have insufficient information to evaluate. That's because for one reason or another, the case is deficient, and when we make an inquiry and want to do some follow-up, either the person can't be contacted or they won't be contacted because they don't want to be contacted. 3 will turn out to be identified flying objects, either man-made or natural. The number 1 culprit is the International Space Station. I cannot tell you how many times I have an argument with people who are convinced that they've seen the vanguard of the alien armada when actually it's the International Space Station. Look it up on the NASA website. Pick a clear night. You can set your watch by when it arrives and by when it leaves. It's spectacular. And you can see why people report it as a UFO. And it will get about 2/3 of the way across the sky, and then it disappears. And that's because it falls in the shadow of the earth and you can't see anymore. But it's still spectacular, and what an achievement. 2 are information-only cases. Once in a great while, we get a hoax. A case can be really, really spectacular, but be too old to really follow up on. That doesn't mean it's not valuable. It just means that what are we going to do with it? Now, I'm actually going to tell you about one or more that I'm totally impressed by, but I can't ultimately prove that it happened or that it didn't happen. Here's the gold. True UFOs A true UFO is a case that involves high witness credibility combined with high strangeness. Now, when I say high witness credibility, I interview people the same way that I did when I was a policeman. With the same, there's part of me that is directly, I hate to admit this, but it's true, you can't do it any other way. Part of me is directly involved in the interview, and there's that other part of me who is called the rational man. He's this fictitious person that they teach investigators to always talk to. So if you're really an investigator, you're kind of schizophrenic because you're having a conversation with yourself. There is this other person with you, the voice in your head, and you are always asking this question: what would a rational person conclude if they were confronted with the evidence that I am facing right now? Not what I want to have happen or what I speculate may have happened, but let's say realistically, how much have I really accomplished here? Now, obviously, in the criminal world, I'm thinking about what questions is the prosecutor going to ask me when I bring this forward, or if we think it's really going forward, what questions is the defense attorney going to ask me? I like this guy. I think it's how I feel after 30 years of UFO investigation. This is really important. When I mentioned in the beginning, don't be an apologist, ufologist, this is a quote from an American philosopher, William James. In order to disprove the assertion that all crows are black, the existence of one white crow is sufficient. We do not need to prove that every single UFO sighting is evidence of extraterrestrial or non-human contact. We only need one case. And I think we went over that level a long time ago. So the media, of course, always wants to put the entire subject on trial whenever UFOs are brought up as a subject. As I just stated, the entire field is put on trial. Very few true UFO events are really isolated incidents, and I'm going to give you a great example here in a moment. There's always a larger context or sequence of events. That gentleman is Kenneth Arnold. Now, June 24th, 1947, he was a businessman who was selling fire suppression systems in the Northwest to farmers and ranchers, so he used a small plane. I believe in his background also he had been a U.S. Marshal or something like that along the way. He had some law enforcement experience. He was flying over Mount Rainier in broad daylight, and he saw a formation of crescent-shaped objects. He did some estimates and came up with a figure around 1,200 miles an hour. There was nothing that looked like that or could fly like that in 1947. When he was interviewed by a news reporter for the East Oregonian newspaper, the reporter said, "Mr. Arnold, how do they fly?" "Well, you know, like flying a saucer over the water." And you can guess what the reporter wrote in his notebook. That reporter probably had no idea when he got up in the morning that he was forever changing the English language by adding a phrase, flying saucer, for all the good and ill that comes with that phrase. Now, here's what's really was going on. Bear in mind, this is about a week and a half before Roswell. This is a wonderful newspaper article that was supplied to me by David Marlar, who is one of the best researchers I have ever had the pleasure of meeting. The witnesses in this article are not ordinary citizens, although that would be good enough. This invasion of flying saucers, the witnesses are police officers who were on duty, who all saw round, metallic, flying craft over the city of Portland, Oregon. And when you read the criticisms of Kenneth Arnold's sighting, they never talk about the context of his sighting with all of the other sightings. But it gets crazier than that. Not long afterwards, this is August 14th, 1947, out in the North Pacific, at a military airfield, we have sentries reporting small crescent-shaped UFOs that they estimate are flying about twice as fast as any fighter plane. Now, that's just one example of many. When I try to think of what have I really gotten from 30 years of research, much of my enjoyment comes from hearing what other people have to say and how they say it. I kind of know the moment when they're giving me their heart. And I'm going to let you kind of re-experience that here in a moment with one of my favorite radar video cases. This happened in Spokane, January 26, 2014. We have two groups of witnesses, although you're going to hear from the primary group, which is a husband and wife and a couple of friends.
Take as many as you can, Wayne.
Miss, I got it on camera, on record.
Take as many as you can.
It's on record.
Good. Take as many as you can. Keep it on record. Videotape it as long as you can. Keep it on there.
Oh my God.
We're going to get your mother.
Danny! Danny! Come here, quick!
It's fake noise too, Dad. Look at it.
We got it on tape this time. It's still there. We got it on tape. It's still there. It moved. It came straight across here and then turned that way.
What the hell is it? Now it's hovering.
There, it's dropping stuff again.
Yeah, there it goes.
Look at that. That's what it was doing before. Oh my God, you guys, what is that?
It's closer now. It's closer. It's right above us now.
Blinking. What the hell
Guys,
is it?
it's right above us. It was over there. It's right above us
It's
now.
moving over towards us more.
Keep filming that. Look at that. Stuff's coming off.
I got a 4X, so it's all the way up.
What the hell is it?
I don't know, but we're getting it on tape.
My God, now look at how tiny it is up there. The big part dropped down and disappeared.
Oh, shit.
It's still there.
Keep it, Dad. Keep it.
I got it here.
That's exactly what it did before. Oh, I'm freaking out.
Okay, that one time you saw it there, then it was over here, now it's over there.
Yeah.
Shit, that's where it started. That's why I saw it last time. It was right about there.
And he saw it too. So that's 4 or 5 times this is going.
So that's a classic UFO sighting and the classic reaction of the witnesses, which is, I love interviewing people like that. But that's what you call an honest reaction. I mean, that's the real thing. So this case being fairly current, I've had the pleasure of meeting another gentleman I genuinely respect, William Puckett, who runs UFOs Northwest. This is another database, and he does a lot of report evaluation. He is a retired NOAA weatherman. And so whenever I need to do a Freedom of Information Act request related to radar, I call him up and he writes the letter, because when they get a letter from him, they know that he knows everything about radar, so they can't just snow him. Now, of course, the downside of this is we have to pay for the data, and this is what he calls unpacked radar data, which I don't pretend to understand. And this is the diagram that he prepared for me afterwards. And if you notice, we have UFO returns. Now those are apparently, this is where the radar sweeps. It makes contact with a solid object. that does not have a transponder. It does not have, or if it has a transponder, it's not on, which that's the little box that it's called squawking. And it says, hi, I'm here, and it has the serial number of the airplane and says, I'm friendly, please don't shoot me down. Or this is who I am and I'm going in this direction, which obviously flight controllers need to know that information. So unless a military aircraft is on a secret mission, they are not allowed to have their transponders turned off, more especially when they are flying over civilian populated areas, which is exactly the area that I was showing you in that video. So we have eyewitness testimony, we have witnesses in 2 different areas, we have video, and we have radar. Pretty good stuff. But more importantly, when you're investigating UFOs, you never know when you're going to meet somebody who's going to change your life. This happened to me. I originally met this lady back in 1993, but she did not decide to talk to me until 1997, after the Phoenix Lights happened, just before the 50th anniversary of Roswell, and when the Air Force responded by publishing Roswell Case Closed. She called me after CNN covered the publication of the Air Force book, and the first thing I heard from her, not having talked to her in 4 years, was, "It's a damn lie." And I said, "Good to hear from you, June." And because it'd been 4 years, but I said, "Why are you willing to talk to me?" And she said, "I'm 72 years old, my cancer's in remission, I've outlived 2 husbands, what are they going to do? Shoot me or put me in prison? I can do either one." I wasn't born yesterday. I said, "June, could I come over for coffee?" And June and I became really, really good friends. And when you talk about looking back over the history of this conference, she's one of the people that I kind of hope is standing over my shoulder as I'm talking to you now. The other one we'll get to later is Deputy Dale Spower from the Portage County, Ohio Sheriff's Office, who I'll get to why he's important to me. But June was extremely well known out at Ocean Shores. That's her obituary. That's a picture of June in 1947. Picture a tall, attractive, vivacious, intelligent woman working amongst a bunch of scientists, engineers, and military people, and we all know that men talk too much around attractive women. We also know, as I know this as a detective, if you go into a business and you want to know what's going on in the business, I don't really care whether I get to talk to the boss, but I really care about whether or not I make friends with the executive secretary or the office manager. There's 2 reasons. They are the gatekeepers, and also they know what's really going on there, more so than most everybody there. That was June. I was totally blown away because she was not a woman who had a background in UFOs or anything else, and she started talking to me about some of her experiences, and I'm going to share one little fragment from one of those conversations. Now, please bear in mind, this is an elderly woman. Her health was actually a little more precarious than she let on, and so my voice is kind of a boomer and she's a little more quiet.
Now, is this the same period of time, I remember that you mentioned before that someone actually showed you a piece of something?
Yeah.
Was this during the same period of time?
Yes, 51, 52.
Okay, now who showed it to you?
Okay, it was Lieutenant Rose is the one that showed it to me, or Captain Wheeler. Now, it could have been one or the other of those guys because they were both in personnel shoots. And he walked in, and they always like to rag me because they couldn't figure me out. And he threw it on my desk, and it was a piece. Well, it was a piece that's about this big, and it was
about half of about size of a business card.
Yeah, about that size, and a half of this.
Okay.
There, and it was bent like this. And he says, June, you're a good wrecker. Tear that thing apart. Break that up. And I took it and I bent it and I twisted it and I laid it back down and it got right back to the same shape. I got on my desk, he says, cut it, try cutting it. I got on my desk, I got my scissors out and I snipped at it, and you know, there was no way I could even cut that piece of metal. And it was as light as a feather. I had it in my hand and I would say that it didn't weigh as much as these 2 cards. It wasn't that heavy. It was so light but strong, and it was about, the thickness would be about, say, let's see, it would be about that thick.
So it's fairly thick, but it doesn't weigh anything.
But it had no weight at all. It was like a feather. And so strong, it was sort of a grayish gunmetal type of color. And you could see that on the inside there was there was a coating on the outside. Both sides of it was the same. And the inside seemed to have a sort of a light lead-colored center to it.
What were the edges of this like? Were they even, or was it like part of something else?
It was even. It was all even. And I said, what is it? He said, it's a piece of spaceship. When I got through with it and I couldn't do nothing with it, I said, well, what is it? And he says, piece of a spaceship. He said, I just come back from New Mexico and I brought it with me. See, he had no business having it in the first place. But
So he was breaking security?
Yes, he was. Definitely.
Obviously in 40 years, and even in my lifetime being 45, I've seen improvements and changes in materials and plastic and metal. And now, have you ever, is it like anything you've seen since?
I always look at things, metal things and stuff like that. And I still have that curiosity because it still bothers me. And I have yet to see anything that would have those properties and look like that. And so light.
So we have metal whose properties have not been replicated even to this day, according to her. And I was trying to poke her a little bit. By the way, I asked her how this scene went down exactly during one of our other interviews. This officer was kind of sitting on the edge of her desk, had given her the piece of metal to tear up, and they had that little conversation, and then another officer walked through the area, and the guy grabbed it, stuck it in his pocket, and walked away and tried to pretend like they were not talking. So you got to kind of put that all in context. But I knew that June was the real deal. She was in the right place at the right time. She had the right papers. She had the right security clearance. And if she didn't know or didn't remember, she would tell you that. And when you are a professional interviewer, that's a sign that the person is telling you the truth. People who know everything worry me as an interviewer. I tried to think if I had to explain to somebody what is UFO reality, and I decided it has 4 parts, and I'm going to explain to you how they fit together. Now, those of you who've had experiences or seen UFOs, you don't need to be convinced. But what I'm trying to provide is an analytic tool, some kind of frame of reference that you can use in the future. These 4 aspects are all dynamically related, they all fit together, and they are constantly changing one to the other. These are the 4 aspects. Obviously, number 1 is the visitors. I'm calling them that not to say they're good or bad. They may be both, they may be all of the above. I'm not saying what they are or where they're from. The media is number 2. 3 is the public, and number 4 is the government. Every time there's a UFO event, I try to break it down into how those 4 elements are being played out here. That's the system. The modern era of UFOs since 1947, the visitors have, by and large, not made themselves known to large groups of people all at once, with some certain startling exceptions like the Phoenix Lights. But usually you have small groups of witnesses if you're really lucky, or just one person with an experience. You learn about UFOs unless you are an experiencer by talking to other people. You get your information from the media, and indirectly, you may not know it, you're also getting it from the government. The media is an interesting player. It's what I call a force multiplier, because you don't know whether the media, which side of any issue the media is going to be on. The media is driven by the forces of the marketplace. They want more viewers, they want to sell more papers, and if they're making a movie, they want to sell a lot of tickets. But they even still may convey some truthful information in all of that. They also are deeply influenced by a long-standing program of government influence on the UFO field. When we say the government, we have to be very careful, because the government as a whole does not have a UFO policy. It's only a small portion within the government that is actively involved in this, that is manipulating the situation. And then, of course, the visitors. When you open your mind to the idea that there is one kind of visitor, there's no particular reason not to think that there may not be more than one type. Parallel to that, I would also point out, we talk about 4 fundamental forces in the universe: the weak nuclear force, the strong nuclear force, electromagnetism, and gravity. The 4 basic things that make everything what it is. Judging by what has happened since I was very young. When I was young, they said there would be no planets out there. They said there would be no water out there. They said there would be no life out there, certainly not intelligent life. What has happened since our instrumentation has become better? Now everyone's bored with the stories of discovering new planets. They are stumbling over water in space. If we can ever get our interstellar transportation going, we're never going to be short of drinking water. All we got to do is melt ice. It's everywhere out there in our own solar system. So I'm just going to throw this out to you. I think that someday, this is my theory, can't prove it, I believe that life is going to turn out to be the 5th force in the universe. And I don't think it's going to be any different than it is on Earth, because on Earth, we have life existing from the edges of the atmosphere under lethal radiation that would kill any of us very quickly, to creatures at the bottom of the ocean that live on thermal vents in the floor of the sea. They survive on heat and chemicals. Those creatures are alive. And a couple of years ago, my wife, for a birthday present, we went to the aquarium in Newport, Oregon. And we paid a little extra money, and I got to meet an extraordinary lady. And I'll introduce you to her in a moment. Just throw that out. I hate to think that we're the best that they could come up with. But here's who I got to meet. Her name is Mystery. She has 9 brains. 1 central brain and 1 each for her tentacles. She can individually control every sucker on her arms. She can control each of those arms. While I was meeting with her over here, the other lady who was there with her 2 children had just taken a shrimp out of a bag over here. And without even missing a beat, I see a tentacle go out this way, up out of the water, and take the shrimp out of the lady's hand. And I'm looking down at this thing, and I'm thinking, you know, you're a whole lot smarter than I thought you were. And, I mean, let's face it, when they were passing out natural defenses, the octopus cut in front of the line and got the best of them. They can change color and texture at will. She did it multiple times while we were there, and it happens so fast you don't even see it happen. They can solve problems, they can escape, they will plot their own escape, they can open jars to retrieve things. If the octopus had technology, they'd be running this planet, not us. So I would just point out that we have to be very careful with the word intelligent. Now for some classic UFOs. Pasco, Washington, September 27th, 2016. Castle Rock in 2012, in November. And Vancouver on July 2nd of 2014. You'll see why each of these cases is important. This is about 8:15 at night. A retired police chief is out in his backyard, and he sees something extraordinary and ends up yelling into the house, and that brings out his wife, his granddaughter, and her boyfriend. They see a giant oval coming towards them with 3 enormous lights. And the lights go 1, 2, 3 from front to back. 1, 2, 3. Blink, 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 blink. It moves towards them and it moves off. They're screaming and yelling. They jump in the car. They try to go after it. They lose sight of it. Okay, this is a detailed diagram that was put together after he was interviewed. These are the drawings that they submitted. The granddaughter's boyfriend summed it up best. When he ran out of the house, the first thing he said was, "Independence Day." I mean, that says it all. So this is kind of an interesting report because we have a police chief making the report. He's also an ex-federal contractor. And so immediately I got a hold of Bill Puckett, did the radar, and lo and behold, we have some unidentified returns on the radar, and we have something that was moving at about 50 to 60 miles an hour in basically the same direction as my witnesses reported. So that would be, I call that a true UFO. This gentleman, Joanne and I went to see him in person. 56-year-old retired commercial helicopter pilot, Air Force veteran, calls on the phone. He's really upset. This is what happens when you drive into town late at night to get deodorant. He put his little dog in his pickup truck and drove into the city of Castle Rock. He gets back to his house, and as he pulls up, he drives out on this road and he goes up the Sci-Town Road over there. And as he makes this turn, he sees 3 huge spheres in the sky. They have a hard edge. They have definite form. They are enormous. He's afraid to drive under them because they're so big. He's scared. He can't decide, do I turn around? Do I sit still or do I floor it? He opts for floor it. The interesting thing, and I've had this phrase come up now from a number of witnesses, he kept saying it had a quality of light that I've never seen before. There was something peculiar about the wavelength. And I have had a lot of witnesses who have gotten close to UFOs who all describe them the same way. Now there's a kicker in all of this that I'll get to. We went to his house. He took me into his den. He had a wall full of his certificates from his career. And he also was a model builder. He had a recreation of a city street in the 1930s down to the little streetcars that ran on overhead lines. This is a person who pays attention to detail. He's a fabulous witness. This is me sitting in his truck. I tried to recreate what he was describing. He drives down to his house, pulls in the driveway, screams for his family. He sees the 3 spheres in a line. As he's watching them, they take off 1, 2, 3. They go faster and faster, going straight up in the air until they're gone. What's the bottom line? He turns out that he belongs to a very, very strict evangelical church. And after this encounter, he is a deeply troubled man. I sent him 2 or 3 UFO books because he kept calling me and saying, I need to know more about this. I don't understand what I saw. And I told him, I said, I can't tell you exactly what you saw. I'm not going to be able to tell you where they come from. I'm just going to be able to tell you there's nothing wrong with you. You're not alone. And a lot of other people have been trying to study this too. And it has nothing, it just makes God's creation more mysterious and more complex. It doesn't change a thing. And I ended up referring him to a website from Dr. Richard Haynes, who runs an organization devoted to pilots who've had encounters. This is perhaps my favorite UFO case in recent years. MUFON thought so too. They said that out of all the cases they receive every year, this was one of the top 10 for 2014. This is a one-witness radar case. There are more witnesses. One of them is a fighter pilot, if I could ever identify him. This witness's name is withheld by me, even from MUFON. This gentleman works for one of the federal agencies. He is an armed agent of the federal government with arrest powers. He is the guy that you hope there are many more like him working for our government. He is a young family man in perfect physical condition. He is a veteran, solid, stable, good sense of humor, very reasonable. He had 0 experience with UFOs. I got a phone call from him on July 13th. He told me he saw a metallic disc flying over downtown Vancouver, Washington, in broad daylight. He said it was about the size of a dime held at arm's length. He could see it tilt and glint in the sunlight, and as he put it, he was desperately hoping that he would see wings, jet engines, propellers, anything that would make it normal. Didn't have it. He couldn't hear it. Now, of course, he's in a big city on the edge of a river, so that may or may not mean anything. So I'm getting all this information from him, and by this point, he's sort of disclosed to me where he works. Eventually, I've met him in person a couple of times now. He says, that's not the weird part. I said, well, what's the weird part? And he tells me it got 2/3 of the way across the sky, and it looked like someone had drawn a line in the air. And as it crossed the line, it wasn't there anymore. He saw a ripple, and it was gone. And within 20, 30 seconds, here comes an F-15 fighter plane, which no doubt came from the Portland Air National Guard at the Portland airport. So I call my good friend Bill Puckett, because this is just too good. And of course, I had it made in the shade because he wrote his own report. And I mean, having a federal agent write my report doesn't get much better than that. I'm going to have to move this along. There's many more places I want to go. Once again, I got radar returns with no transponder in exactly the right part of the sky where he says that the UFO disappeared. And we got the F-15. So, I have a gentleman who is putting his entire career at risk to tell me a story about a UFO. It is a broad daylight sighting. It is a solid metallic object with an unconventional shape that flies in an unconventional way. And it exits the area in an extremely unconventional way. And I have the government going after it. And I have it on radar. And I'm still in communication with this witness because he wants to learn about UFOs. It couldn't get any better than this unless I could tow the UFO out here into the parking lot on a trailer and let you meet the driver. And I will tell you that that's my greatest hope in life. I want to meet an alien, even beyond the octopus. I'm scared of the idea, but I want to. Now, here's one of those one witness cases that I can't really do anything with, but I would point out that if you think this is true, think of what it means for what's going on all around us. I have a gentleman who's a retired millwright. He installed huge machines in lumber mills, that kind of thing, and then would set them up to make sure that they run right. He did this as a career. He made a lot of money. He wanted to tell me about a story back in 1983 when he and his friend were fishing. There are important elements in this story. They're coming back, they're walking along a road, the sun is out, it's a beautiful day, you can hear the insects, there's a breeze. And then he said, all at once, for no reason, with no warning, the air went slack. There was no movement, no sound, no nothing. And they're standing there thinking, what does this mean? And then something went by them right over the ground. And he said it was as if you were standing too close to an enormous television set that was showing you an image of what was behind it. He said, imagine that you were standing on a runway of a major airport and a 747 taxis right by you. The wheel is like here, and here's the huge wing. Now imagine that the wheel and the wing are invisible. You're absolutely sure that you're standing next to a piece of huge machinery that will crush you if you get in its way. But you can't see it. You can only see kind of the blur, because he said it wasn't a perfect camouflage job. So they're watching this huge thing. He can see big curved edges, and his friend had jumped out of the way, and he was like petrified. It goes by, and then it's gone, and everything goes back to normal. And as I have heard from so many witnesses like him, he has never forgotten that transformative moment. Now, if this is true, and this is going on all around us routinely, the human race has no idea what's going and coming all the time. That's what I get out of that. The military can't control it. That's one of the things they don't want to admit. And we don't even know who they are, where they're coming from, or when they come and go. Interesting. Now there's a great mystery. The media, in all of its forms. October 31st, 1938, the famous Orson Welles broadcast, radio play terrifies nation. That point was not lost on the government, the power of the media to influence. But remember I told you that the media can go both ways? Let's just pick one science fiction movie. The original movie called The Arrival with Charlie Sheen. These are bad aliens. They do not mean us well. They want to terraform the earth and take it away from us. They are going to destroy us if they're not stopped. This is a very bleak picture of the universe. Now we have The New Arrival, which if you haven't seen it, I love this movie. Brilliant movie. We have aliens who come here for their own reasons. They have a completely different concept of time than we do. They have an agenda which is actually beneficial to us. They do want something from us, but not for a long time. And the biggest threat that we face is each other because of how we react to the arrival. This is still the media selling box office tickets. Now, I have to say, this is part of the movie that made me who I am today. I can't say it any other way. This is timeless, brilliant, says it all. Gort Klatu Barada Nikto. I had to say it at least once. So who or what led you here? That's always the question and the favorite story that I want to hear. I tried to think of the two forces. Since I have not had my own experience, I'm going to introduce you to the two people who probably made my mind as strange as it is. That's number one. I mean, the Twilight Zone taught me to think, because I'm always looking for what doesn't fit in. I'm always looking for the twist. I'm always looking for the other motive. This is as political as I will get. Any state that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete. I love you, Rod Serling. And the other man was Ray Bradbury. Fahrenheit 451. You don't have to burn books to destroy a culture, just get people to stop reading them. It's so important that these books are read on and on and on. The public. We do depend upon each other for how we perceive reality. So when we investigate UFOs, I'll give it to you in a nutshell. If you're an astronomer, these are your receivers. That's the very large array down in New Mexico. If you're a ufologist, these are your receivers. Anybody and everybody. And I will tell you that human beings have a lot of different reasons for how and why they perceive things or how and why they report them. And just when you think you've heard them all, someone will come up with something else. Now, the biggest problem we have is signal versus noise. This is what I call noise. The internet is filled with it. The latest CGI project, computer-generated imagery. What we're really looking for is signal. I'm looking for glimpses, hints of meaning, perhaps a true insight into non-human intelligence. What are the questions that bring us all here? They're based upon, I know what I saw, I know what I experienced, I need to know. We want contact with whatever that higher intelligence is, because we all know that it's out there, and most of us were convinced a long time ago that they've been coming here for a long time. I just throw that out as a question. What if the real purpose for their being here is that transformation of the witnesses and the people who hear their stories? In other words, this disclosure is being done over a long period of time. And unfortunately, it's kind of painful for those of us who want the answer right now. I don't think it's going to happen. Do you think when fish get thrown back by fishermen, they swim around yelling about alien abductions and the other fish stop talking to them? I don't know who created this, but it was too good. I had to put it in there. Because that really is the problem. Here's the other problem. If you've never heard this story, it's an old parable about 6 blind men who are trying to describe an elephant, and they all have hold of a different part of the elephant. And they get into a lengthy argument about it can't be like that. You know, one of them has a leg, one of them has the trunk, one of them has the tiny tail, one of them has the ear. So we get it all right and we're all wrong at the same time because we can't quite see the elephant. When we investigate UFOs, if I opened a school of investigation, this would be inscribed over the doorway. Nothing is ever what it appears to be. There are no coincidences, only circumstances with unknown connections. Gaining access to the truth may be beyond your resources and security clearance. Sometimes you just can't get where you want to go. And this quote has more to do with UFO investigation than just about anything. How often have I said to you that when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth? From Sherlock Holmes, as written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. That's really what we do when we investigate UFOs. We're doing exclusive diagnosis, like when you go to the doctor and the doctor you don't know what you got, the doctor doesn't know, so he starts figuring out what you don't have. That's kind of what we do with UFOs. We try to figure out what it isn't first. Now we have the government. I define that for our purposes as small groups within the national security state who possess classified knowledge and the power to direct how witnesses to UFO reality will be handled in keeping with long-term policies. And yet at the same time, the government is a mixed bag. That man would have been my friend June's boss 5 or 6 levels up, and that's what he told his boss in a memorandum that was originally secret. The phenomena reported is something real and not visionary or fictitious. Roscoe Hillenkoetter, first director of the CIA. Interestingly enough, he was also on the board of directors for NICAP, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, the first serious major UFO investigative organization. And so I can't tell you that in MUFON we would be so easily infiltrated by intelligence agencies. We're not that secretive. You know, anybody who wants to buy a membership and pass the test can become an investigator. So how hard would it be for and for one thing, they just hack into the database. I mean, let's face it. Everything changed after 1947. Many of us think it's because of Roswell. They passed the National Security Act. They created the Defense Department, the Central Intelligence Agency, and the United States Air Force. I don't want to dwell on this history too much because we have more UFOs. There's your original policy. The Robertson Panel, 1952, the CIA thought it would be a good idea to debunk UFOs, reduce public interest, and monitor civilian UFO groups. So we got to find out where the CIA or NSA agent is in the audience. What happens when you mix these aspects that I've described to you? I would just say when you add government plus media, there will be a quiz. It equals social engineering, misdirection, and censorship. This is an actual quote, and every time I think of this, I'm staggered. We pay for this. We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. How did we get to there? See, this is the other thing I love about UFOs. Not just the idea of meeting visitors from other worlds and establishing our true place as Terrans, the people of Earth. I love the fact that it makes us study history. Let's face it, UFO researchers were talking about being bugged by the government. We were 30 years ahead of the curve. We were talking about that way before we heard about the NSA monitoring our cell phones and hacking into all of our emails. So, I mean, we did it before it was trendy. We're good, you know, we pat ourselves on the back. Now, no description of UFO reality is all light or all dark. I am going to turn serious for a moment. The gentleman in the middle is Deputy Dale F. Spower of the Portage County, Ohio Sheriff's Office. I am deeply interested in righting a wrong that was done to this man, and just before I came to this conference, it appears that I'm going to get a whole new source of information on this case. You'll notice that he only lived to be 51 years old. On April 17th of 1966, while on duty with Deputy Wilbur Neff, they encountered a UFO that they chased down the highway at speeds in excess of 100 miles an hour. It played with them. It would go just fast enough that they could barely keep up with it, and then it would slow down and wait for them, and it stayed low down over the highway, and until the very end, it never gained any great altitude. Now, the thing is, you have to put this in context, like I mentioned before. If you go over to Michigan in March of 1966, you have a huge UFO flap. You have college students in dormitories watching UFOs land and take off. You have deputy sheriffs seeing UFOs. The public calling in upset. This is where the phrase swamp gas started. And a young senator, Gerald Ford, called for hearings. The only UFO hearing that ever occurred at a government level, public level. I think it lasted a day. But you see, in the firm belief that the American public deserves a better explanation than that thus far given by the Air Force, I strongly recommended there be a committee investigation of the UFO phenomena. There's the diagram of the chase. Going back to April now, back to April 17th, less than 1 month later over in Ohio, we have deputies chasing a UFO, hundreds of persons. All of the newspaper articles say hundreds of persons. Multiple police officers see the UFO. There's Deputy Spower's description. Imagine something, a football as big as a house, only you slice it in half. It's glowing. It has kind of strange protrusion coming off of it, and it moves through the air on a cone of light going down the highway. Unfortunately, the press, the media, descended upon Ravenna, Ohio like a plague of locusts. They were interviewing everybody, wouldn't let them alone. Dale Spower cracked under the pressure because he was the lead witness. Dale Spower, I should also tell you, was a young married man with a child who was a year old named James, an older brother, I believe, named Robert, who was maybe 2, and his wife. He got into an argument with his wife, which she years later admits that she started, and he roughed her up and put bruises on her arms. He lost his job as a deputy sheriff. He ended up working as a painter, making almost no money, and he basically became an alcoholic, and he died in obscurity years later. He owned a bar in Ohio at the time of his death. Not a very happy story. Well, the Air Force had to do something. It had to be put down hard. So he was interviewed by Major Quintanilla of Project Blue Book. And here's the first question that Major Quintanilla asked Dale Spower. Tell me about the mirage you saw. I would submit to you that Dale Spower was a man who was betrayed by his country. He was a veteran. He had been a ball turret gunner and a bomber in the Air Force. There's nothing that indicates he was anything except an exemplary deputy sheriff. He's a young family man. This is a terrible injustice. I've done some research about Dale Spower. So I even know where he's buried. And my intent in the long run is to write a complete story. I met his young son, the man who was his infant son, last summer in Ohio when we were there for a family reunion. And as he summed it up best, he said, you know how some people say they were abducted by aliens? My dad was abducted from my life by that damn saucer. This is why this story fascinates me. It's the human element that makes it important. So what have I learned? One of the things that I've really learned from 30 years of UFO research Don't believe anything until it's been officially denied. I can't stay in that grim world too long. There are no answers for you, Mr. Mulder. They only have one policy: deny everything. Now, see, the media and reality, art and reality reflect each other. That's another fascinating part of UFOs, the way that they go back and forth. So how do you hide the truth in plain sight? Generoso Pope Jr. founded the National Enquirer magazine. I did not make this stuff up. I thought that this was bogus. I bought a biography of Generoso Pope, and it told me the same thing. Just before he opened the National Enquirer magazine, guess where he worked? I'm not making this stuff up. Jeez! The CIA Psychological Warfare Unit. The other interesting thing is how this history all fits together. His father was definitely in the mob. And the CIA and the mob were very closely affiliated back then because the mob, let's say, knew about business methods that would help the CIA finance some of their more interesting projects. Is there any such thing as an ex-CIA agent? Now, this is how you hide the truth. Because in the very same magazines, you put stories like this. Jackie Gleason, I saw bodies at a top secret Air Force base. It turns out that his wife, when she wrote the story of their marriage, Jackie Gleason was close personal friends with President Richard Nixon. They golfed together. And one night Nixon showed up, drove Jackie Gleason to an Air Force base in Florida. And Jackie Gleason, who had been a lifelong open fan of UFOs, he had a big room with books, newspaper clippings, like we all do. And after that day, he would never talk about UFOs again. The Travis Walton story got put in the National Enquirer not long after it happened. That's their first attempt to make that story go away. And I will tell you, the Travis Walton story is one of the most powerful stories that there is. I say that also as an ex-law enforcement officer because all of the witnesses were polygraphed over and over again. There is no way that they beat that polygraph operator. I know how polygraph operators are trained, and I know what they can do. And the polygraph operator couldn't have cared less at the time whether Travis Walton and his friends actually saw a flying saucer and contacted aliens. He was just doing his job as a state policeman. UFOs spotted at nuclear bases. I want to turn to two cases that changed my life. Back about the time in 1987, when I first joined MUFON, and up until then, I did not tell my fellow policemen that I was involved in UFOs, okay? It took me a while until I was established. And then I started talking to them about UFOs, and of course, I got a tinfoil hat put in my locker. I got, there were little aliens. Everybody always brought me alien stuff. And they still do, and I love it. But I could give as well as take. But after a while, they started telling me things, and they kept saying, something crashed in the woods by Westport, Washington. Now, this is the area where I used to live. Aberdeen is where I was a policeman for 20 years. There's Olympia, where I live now. Joint Base Lewis McChord. Tacoma's here. Seattle would be up there. Elma, witnesses started seeing a UFO coming down out of the skies from as far away as Elma. This is like 20 miles to Aberdeen and another 26 miles out here. So we've got witnesses seeing this thing coming down from 46 miles away. We had witnesses in Central Park outside of Aberdeen, witnesses in Aberdeen, and witnesses in Westport who saw an object come down out of the sky It made one final maneuver, and then it crashed on November 25th, 1979. That's part one of the story. Part two of the story is military roadblocks were set up because I interviewed the loggers who couldn't care less about UFOs, but you got to know loggers to understand this. They were bragging about the fact that they stood up to those soldiers who were blocking the logging roads with rifles on Monday morning. Now, this leads me to believe that the military already knew this thing was coming down. That's the area it would have crashed over in here. It's not an easy area to get through. After we investigated all of this, obtained all these witnesses in 1987, eventually, several years later, a witness came forward named Alan Raymer, who turned out to be a very well-known biologist working for the state of Washington. Sterling reputation, and he said that the night after the UFO crash, he saw what I call the other search party. Not far from the crash site, he saw one huge round UFO and a whole string of smaller ones. And because he's a wildlife biologist, he described them as a mother duck with her ducklings. There was the big light with all the smaller ones. The big light stopped. The other lights started clustering around, moving back and forth, and then with no warning, all of them shot off in different directions, as he put it, faster than any aircraft I've ever seen in the sky. And then the big one shot off to the northwest over the ocean. There are a lot more details, but in the interest of time, well, hopefully, if you're really interested, you'll come and see me about my book, to be very commercial. But it's a good book and it's a great story. Now, if I had read the paper then, bear in mind I was a rookie policeman back in 1979, and you don't see any daylight when you're a rookie, and I wasn't a subscriber to the newspaper. I would have seen stories like this. These are all stories about that one event. Finally, the last story. One witness in particular, Estella Crussell, had almost a psychic connection. She described a huge craft going overhead, and when I interviewed her several years later, she was taking care of her dying husband at the time. She was watching television, and she even remembered which Sunday night movie of the week she did not get to see the last 5 minutes of, because this very strange thing was going by slowly overhead. And she kept saying, "My God, they're in trouble. They're going down." And a lot of other witnesses thought it was an aircraft on fire. I will also tell you, I checked. Nobody was missing any aircraft. Not propeller planes, not helicopters, not anything. Turning to the other major case, I mentioned her in the beginning, and I will also mention her again as we draw to a close. My good friend June. Meeting her, hearing her story, I kept a promise to her. When she was dying, I talked to her one last time over in a hospice in Hoquiam, Washington, and I said, "What do you want me to do, June?" And she said, "Tell my story." That's where I got the title of the book. And I will tell you that her story has made it to India, England, France. I'm always willing to talk about June because I think her story is so important. This is my big question. What if we are being changed by UFO reality as individuals, so we will be ready for contact as a civilization? That is probably, for me, the bottom line. I'm going to conclude on a happy note. I don't know how many of you have heard of this gentleman. His name is Robert Iemos. He is a well-known artist who lives in Barcelona, Spain. He has lived in the United States during certain parts of his life. In 2009, he was visiting friends and relatives in Fortaleza, Brazil. He is an artist. Some of his work has been on display, I think is on display in Atlanta as public statuary, etc. He was out one day by himself. He had a sketch pad and pencils, and he was looking for inspiration. He got it. He discovered while he was looking at the landscape, kind of letting his mind go, that there was a spaceship in the sky. He noticed that it was getting closer. But instead of being afraid, and this is the key, his artist mind took over. And he started drawing and sketching frantically, not realizing that he was getting closer to two of the beings who were in the craft. And it's a little unclear, and I've been communicating with him back and forth, and I don't want to ask him any leading questions. But he apparently got very close to these beings. And it appears that they wanted him to depict them. And all he has done since then with statues and drawings and paintings is to show us what these alien beings look like. And can I prove to you that this is true? No, I can't, not objectively. I just know that his work resonates with me deeply, and that this is an honest man. This is an artist, and he may have given us some wonderful insights. And there are historical precedents for strange beings with long necks. It appears that they are adorned. These are not, you could guess, we'd just be guessing, that maybe these were nobility of some sort. So here, I couldn't help but draw looking at his statues, the two seem to go together. So finally, I would ask, when we ask, who are the visitors? That's the deepest question. When we look into their eyes and try and figure out who they are, why they're here, what their motives are we really asking who we are? And on that note, I will say thank you and blessings on your journey to know the truth. God bless everyone.